All right, welcome everyone on this nice, warm, tropical night in Royal Oak, Michigan. I'm going to call the January 28th, 2019 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. Before we begin with the invocation, I just want to make a couple of announcements. If you're not already aware, we did call for a snow emergency today at around 2:30, I believe, which means that we kindly ask all of our fellow neighbors to move your cars into your driveway or into the parking garage out of the road so our plows can work effectively and efficiently removing the snow. They'll begin on the south part of town this time. The last snowstorm, we began on the north part of town, and really it makes a dramatic difference on the speed that the plows can go if we all keep our cars out of the streets. So cooperation with that is very important out of respect for your fellow neighbors. Okay, so we're going to begin with an invocation given by Commissioner Paruch, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand if you can.
As we gather here this snowy evening, we are grateful for all the public safety personnel, public works employees, and other emergency responders who are working lengthy shifts under hazardous conditions to keep us safe as Mother Nature again demonstrates to all of us who's really in charge. We're also grateful for the efforts of so many in Royal Oak and the surrounding communities who devote their time and resources to providing safe shelter and assistance for the homeless and the elderly in our area during the winter months, especially in the brutal cold that will arrive later this week. As we move forward to tackle the issues facing our community not only this evening but throughout the coming year, may we have wisdom to govern in the community and represent all the perspectives of the citizens in our community, whether or not we all agree. May we have the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. And may we always strive to do what is best for the Royal Oak community and its citizens as a whole in an effort to keep Royal Oak a safe, inviting, and peaceful community in which to work and live. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, a couple more announcements before we begin public comment. Just one, maybe two things, and Commissioner Macy has an announcement, but just more of a housekeeping issue. Item number 4 on the agenda, the presentation of the City Employee Years of Service Awards will be postponed till February. And we also, the first reading of the marijuana ordinance was, I think, posted maybe on Thursday or Friday. That's also been pushed off the agenda this evening, so we won't have any discussion on that, but we will at a further date, I imagine. Commissioner Macy.
Just wanted to announce that the preschool information night, which was supposed to take place tonight at the farmers market, is, because of the snow and the cold, has been postponed until next Monday, February 4th. So it'll take place, same time, different date.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Macy. That brings us to item number 5, which is public comment. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to make decisions. Now's the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issue, whether it's on the agenda or not. There are no public hearings scheduled this evening, so this will be your only time to address the City Commission. I ask that comments be directed to the City Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. If you wish to speak tonight, please raise your hand and be recognized by the mayor, me, and come up to the podium. For the record, we ask that you state your name and address, and we also have a timer up here to help keep track of your time. We do wish to hear from anyone who wishes to speak tonight, so we do have a timer there, and it will help you keep track of your time. If you don't wish to speak tonight, don't worry. Reach out to us with whatever medium you feel comfortable with, phone, email, etc. Please note that the City Commission typically doesn't respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we're taking notes, as well as the city manager, and issues and questions will be discussed when the agenda topics come up, or if the item you're talking about isn't on the agenda, the city manager or proper department will address the issue as appropriate. With that, who's first? Mr. Lockwood.
Mayor, Commissioners, good evening. We are on the agenda for later on for approval of a special events permit for the use of food trucks on our own personally owned property. We've come to an agreement with the police department on a plan that honestly is a little more limiting and expensive than we hoped for, but a plan that we're willing to work with. The current proposed plan you will hear limits us to one food truck event per week, which requires a $125 permit for every month, regardless of how many events that we end up executing during that month. We can work within these restrictions. However, I would like to respectfully ask for the Commission's approval to allow us to bundle 3 months' worth of permits at a time under a single $125 permit fee. Number one, to better align the cost of that permit with the scope of these mini events. And secondly, to make this process a little more cost prohibitive for us, less cost prohibitive. Please keep in mind that all of the events will take place 100% on public property that we own, maintain, and pay taxes on. The total anticipated audience for these events, when you total a single month, will still only be a small fraction of the attendance of other local events that traditionally use this type of permit. No outdoor drink service, games, activities, even seating is being requested of this permit. Really all it is just parking a truck in an existing parking space at our business. No traffic or parking enforcement is required. No public parking is being reserved. No public right-of-ways are being restricted. And I'd also like to mention that we have a perfect record since opening 4 years ago with absolutely no incidents where police assistance has been required. While $125 may not seem like a lot, please keep in mind that we do not anticipate making any money directly from the food trucks that we host, and we do anticipate some months where only one event or maybe less actually happen due to complications with scheduling, weather, etc. As landlords, we believe that in order to recruit the most talented food artisans to Royal Oak, we need to make their stay cost-effective and easy. To that point, we do not plan to charge food trucks rent, commission on their food sales, or permit costs. I'll be in attendance for the discussion later on today's agenda, and we'll be happy to answer any additional questions at that time. I'd like to thank you for your time and for considering my request.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. Anybody else here? Mr. Harrison?
Bill Harrison, 2729 Trafford. Just a couple of items. Recently, I saw that light show that Ford put on at the, Michigan Central train station that they've purchased or whatever. And it reminded me of when I was on the DDA, there was a lot of consternation about the fifth and the blank wall, the concrete wall. And I had suggested that we do a light show, work with John Hanna to put a light show on that wall. And I suggest that maybe you folks talk to the downtown manager and see if that could be accomplished. John's a pretty cooperative guy. I don't imagine he would say no. And there are no windows, of course, on that wall. It wouldn't bother anybody. It would be a matter of organizing with whoever has the Monkey Ward building or maybe Frank Hobrick, where you could put the camera to, because it's got to be away from the wall a bit. Anyway, just a thought. Last time I was here, I was talking about the fact that the Commission and the DDA no longer receive monthly police reports. And now I'm hearing a lot of chatter about LA Fitness, and it seems that that's a problem child with crime in the parking lot and even in the building. And as we all know, when we've had restaurants in the past that have been bad actors, we've kicked them out of town. I think somebody needs to talk to corporate. That's a problem that we have here with, we're fine when we have occupiers and businesses, but when we have corporate involved, the management, everybody is distant. Somebody needs to grab them a hold and shake them a little bit. There are other historic problem areas like the Stevenson apartments where there was drugs and prostitution, and that was a mess. Be interested to know what's going on there. And then over in my neighborhood at 13 in Woodward, we have what I call the Section 8 apartments. And that's problematic. You know, in our neighborhood, we've had armed robberies, et cetera. And I really think that it's necessary that you folks and the DDA for the downtown area receive a monthly report of the police actions, what's going on, so that you stay up to date, because there's more to running the city than just taking care of the business that you've been taking care of. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Harrison. Who's next? Is that Mr. James B. Ellison?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for my attire. I'm dressed for snow and not for commission meeting. But I did want to take this time. I'm State Representative Jim Ellison. My address is 1309 Mohawk in the city of Royal Oak. I did want to inform the commission of my committee appointments. We started the 100th session of the Michigan Legislature on January 9th. We have been in organization session right now, but we go up tomorrow and we start committee meetings. And I wanted to let the commission know what committees I've been assigned to, because one of them is particularly significant to what we do here. I'm assigned to the tax policy, the health policy, but I've also been appointed vice chair of the local government and municipal finance committee. And that committee has been restructured to have the municipal finance portion of it as part of the local government. So I'll be looking back towards you folks to give me ideas of how we can fix this broken municipal finance that we've got. And hopefully, I know I've been talking to my co-leaders up there that we're all intent on doing something to fix this system. So any input you got, forward it off to me, and I'll be calling you and letting you know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison. And certainly, we appreciate your efforts on the committee. We have lots of ideas. All right, who's next? Is that Mr. Ashley, I think? Yep. All right.
Good evening. My name is Alan Ashley. I live at Royal Oak Manor. And speaking of finances, I like to go over some of, since it's on the budget, on the agenda for budget, I like to discuss some fancy budgeting this city commission has done. Start off with Mr. Ron Bogie was given $5.5 million to build a Class A building for the city that has no, that the city has no equity interest in it at all, and is a tax-exempt medical building. Ron Bogie also sold prime real estate for $1 for the land that was city parking lot that generated revenue that was worth about $1 million. Ecken Building was sold for $1. The Frizard property used for car storage lot off of Lincoln in Maine was bought by the city for $5 million and now is being sold for $1.5 million to Burton Castman, to Burton Castman. Burton Castman also was benefited by a TIF, a property tax rebate of $3.1 million. Okay, part of that TIF, the TIF and the cost rebate worth $8 million, and the developer only paid $1.5 million. Nice math. The public safety and millage creates about $10 million annually and was used to hire 17 police and fire personnel that was much needed. This millage also freed up the general fund to hire 42 bureaucrats. If the public safety millage does not pass the next time around, the city government cannot, or the general bond fund cannot pay for both the bonds down or the 42 bureaucrats that were hired. It seems that if we're, again, and as I said before, if we're a developer, an architect, we get benefits, but as seniors, we get nothing. We are now, as I stated many times before, seniors were paid $25 per pocket. We're now paying $45, and we are on a fixed income while the city is selling off land and big chunks for parking garages and buildings that they have no interest in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Commissioner Dubak.
I'm sorry, Mayor. You folks are certainly entitled to their opinions, and I think it's our job to take criticism and have people question decisions made at this table, but literally every number just stated was factually inaccurate. I think most important to note is that the Henry Ford Health System will be renting the Bogie Building, which is a for-profit entity, which will be paying us double in tax revenues what we have invested in the building. Even if it were a nonprofit entity coming in, our contract is ironclad. The city will receive double what it invested in that project, and that's just an undeniable fact. So people can keep saying, falsehoods over and over and over again in the hope that they stick, but the facts are the facts. The contract is there. It's actually an innovative approach to this that other cities are now trying to copy because it guarantees our return on that tax revenue.
And I'll just add, because we did such a great job on that contract, our economic development manager and legal counsel are being asked to speak to other communities about how they can secure such great economic development along with such an ironclad deal and demand things like LEED certification and prevailing wage. So overall, it's a great story. Like Commissioner Dubak said, we're all entitled to our opinions, but we can't change the facts. And it's important the dialogue we have as a community is based on fact and that our opinions are based on fact. So it's helpful to make those corrections. Mr. Wolf.
Hold on here. You're going to call on Commissioner DeBuck, but not me? What's up with that?
Commissioner Lavasser.
Thank you. Let's be fair to the members of the public who come to speak to us. It's not fair to basically hear them speak and then basically say everything that they say is incorrect. Not that Mr. Ashley said that's indisputable correct. There's no question that the public safety millage generates close to $10 million per year, that we've added 17 police officers. No question that they're paying $45 for their parking passes, and no question that that the city has given Mr. Bogie's company $5.5 million plus land for $1. That's all correct that he stated. So when a commissioner says everything he said is incorrect, that's very unfair.
Thank you, Mr. Lavasser. Mr. Wolf.
Ron Wolf, 333 North Troy Street, ironclad. Bull. The Titanic was ironclad, as I told you once in the parking lot long before you were a mayor, and that you're going to be the captain of it. And look what you're doing. You're steering it straight into an iceberg.
Mr. Wolf, you have to address the commission as a whole, not individual commissioners.
sorry.
That includes me, okay?
No.
Thank you.
No. That is just a request. It's not in order. And I am addressing basically Mr. Lavasser and Ms. Gibbs. And as for the rest of you who don't have one altruistic bone in your bodies combined. And why do I say this? Because you can find, you can charge literally next to homeless elderly seniors who are mentally and physically declining in their later years. The last bit of independence they have in their cars, $45 a month. Only a handful. Under the flag of seniors deserve no special treatment by this city manager who runs this city from top to bottom while the rest of you act as pawns for him. And Mr. Bogie, who he takes home, who has the audacity to donate a mere $10,000 to add a few bricks to the library. I only speak for the residents, and I only speak for residents first, not special interest first. I'm not interested in paying off bonds and making sure that the city books are balanced by the blood of seniors at Royal Oak Manor. You people are insane. I cannot understand you. And as for Mr. DeBuck, to get up here and accuse Mr. Ashley of fabricating, actually it's more than 7.5 million. It's over 12 million. Mr. Bogie is making a killing, and Mr. Bogie can sell that building at any time he wishes back to Henry Ford. Do you realize Mr. Bogie has arranged an agreement with Henry Ford to use his company's medical billing company exclusively? And why did Cernal leave? He didn't leave voluntarily. He left because Mr. Bogie already had an agreement with Henry Ford. That's obvious by the circumstances. And for you to try to pull the wool over the eyes of the citizens of Royal Oak, and I have to commend Mr. Johnson, because I've never met anyone who, brilliant as chess player as Mr. Johnson. He plays 7 moves in advance. And he knows exactly what he's doing when he's putting together these wasting $10,000 cockamamie surveys with a predetermined outcome on this medical marijuana. And as far as the sunset clause, could coincidentally opens up
All right, Mr. Wolf, I need you to finish your
in
last thought.
2020, just in time for Mr. Bogie to open up his marijuana dispensaries. Look up Ron Bogie and marijuana. Everybody, look it
Thank
up.
you, Mr. Wolf.
Look up Stephen
All right,
Miller,
who's
Oakland
next?
Press, June 24th.
Ms. Wagman.
First of all, since it's a snow night and there's not as many people tonight, I'm going to ask for some extra time. I timed it at home and it was like 4.5 minutes, so I'm hoping I can have that. Do we need I think it's 4.5. Just in case I stutter.
Second by Commissioner Gibbs. Discussion. Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, 4.5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, unless I talk really fast. At the last meeting and at numerous other meetings, as well as Parks and Rec, I talked about improving services for seniors. There is a problem, and I've suggested possible solutions. At least 3 times now, Commissioner DeBuck has contradicted my comments, so once again, I'm here to state some of my concerns and offer suggestions for improvement. Yes, as Commissioner DeBuck argued at the last meeting, this commission created a senior task force early last year. Since that time, there have been exactly 2 meetings. At the last meeting in November, they voted to join the ARP Livable Communities 5-year program. It was supposed to be presented this evening for your approval. Unless the task force plans on doing double duty or abandons the ARP program, it will be approximately 2 years before they bring any strategic goals back to you. Commissioner DeBuck may be willing to wait another 2 years, but I believe Royal Oak seniors deserve actions now. How? Review Auburn Hills Action Plan, they're certified, and pick low-hanging fruit that is common to most cities and seniors. The city needs to improve communication with seniors. Auburn Hills, Southfield, Huntington Woods have all acknowledged this in their communities. Your own community satisfaction survey affirms this. Many senior residents do not know what the city offers, including these possible life-saving items from the fire department. I wish my mom would have known about this when she was still alive. Number 1 is this File for Life. It has all the medical information that the fire department would use when they come in. It has your name, contact people, what medicines you're taking, what medical conditions you have. The fire department offers this. It's got a magnet. You put it on your refrigerator, and they know where to look for it. The other one, this is it's called a residential lockbox, and it's also available. Well, it's available to purchase at Friends and Sons. You put it's like a realtor's lockbox. You put a key to your home in it. You take it to the fire department. They will install it for you, and only they have access to this key. So if you're home, you can't get to the door. The emergency people can get in rather rapidly without breaking your door down. It's a life-saving thing. And a lot of seniors don't even know it exists. I've distributed a flyer about both of those to you, but I'm sure Judy Davids could do a much better job. Auburn Hills decided to put flyers in with their water bills, but there's lots of other ways you could get this information out. You just have to be proactive about it. What other low-hanging fruit? Bring back the Senior Advisory Committee with a mandate to be proactive. Parks and Rec focuses almost exclusively on parks, although I appreciate the efforts of Commissioner Macy, since she's been on it. Improve communication by working with the Royal Oak Review for senior news column or inserts. Cheaper mailers from the post office. Like I said, there's lots of other ways. Establish an at-risk database of seniors to call on a regular basis. Coordinate with schools for students helping out seniors, raking leaves, shoveling sidewalks and that. Berkeley and Huntington Woods do it. Strategic planning identified city hall workers feeling overburdened. Bring in seniors who work for tax discounts. It's been done in other cities. They can stuff envelopes, they can help at election time, there's lots of stuff they can do. Honestly, I feel like seniors are an afterthought by the majority of this commission. You are front and center with Arts Beats and Eats and the Civic Center development. Anything to do with downtown, new high-density development, but not seniors, and had no problem making 2 ballot proposals that would actually increase our taxes. For instance, handicap parking at Farmers Market. You closed down the lot where most of the handicap spaces went, actually all the handicap spaces were, and didn't repaint the remaining 2 lots until we called and said, hey, there's no handicap parking there. Now you've got 4 spaces there, 2 on each side. Only 2 have signage, so people in conditions like this where the lot hasn't been plowed are parking in the handicap spots because there's no signs there to indicate it, and the snow's covering up the paint. And there's only 4 spaces total now. And everything I've read is you say there's going to be 121 spaces. According to ADA requirements, you need more than that.
Ms. Wagman, I do need you to have your final thought.
Okay. As well as the 120, as well as the problems with Royal Oak Manor, which still haven't been solved. Royal Oak seniors deserve action now, so we can age in place. We're not just a bullet point on campaign literature.
Thank you, Ms. Wagman. Who's next? Yes, sir.
I'm Bob Shepard. I live at 1631 West Houstonia in Royal Oak. I was at the December City Council meeting in reference to the authorization to terminate the Warden Park licensing agreement, where I was going to build a parking lot for the city of Royal Oak, which would enable me to build a medical office building at the corner of 13 and Crooks and Windermere. I spoke to Dave Gillum about why maybe the city was considering doing that, and he suggested that I talk to Joseph Murphy in planning, which I did last week. And Joseph said to me there was really no reason that they said they wanted to terminate the licensing agreement. The planning department was given a directive to determine where there might be some property in the city of Royal Oak where some special developments or certain types of I guess, city park usage could be obtained. That parcel was there, but it showed the licensing agreement. Without contacting me, there was a directive to terminate the license agreement, which I still want to build the building. I'm building the parking lot for the city at no cost to the city, insuring the property. Joseph said there is nothing in the works, to my understanding now, for any particular thing that is going to go into that adjacent parking space. So I'm asking the city to reconsider and not terminate my license agreement. I still plan to build the parking lot for the city. I still plan to maintain it, insure it, and use it for the city parks and recreation on the off hours and on special events, and I would like to continue the development in the future. Is there any questions that anybody has of me?
So you are,
Gibbs.
sorry.
You know, I have a feeling we might pull this off the agenda, so I think we can save questions till then.
Okay, that's
All
fine.
right, thank you.
If you want to shoot me an email, I'll be more than happy to
In
answer.
reference to,
So that I have your
Commissioner Gibbs, we're
contact
still in
information.
public comment.
okay. Last time I was here, everybody said they had not seen the licensing agreement. Hopefully you have all seen the licensing agreement by now and understand what it is and what I propose to do at no cost to the city.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Anybody else here to speak at public comment? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to close public comment and bring the meeting back up to here, which brings us to item number 6, which is the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Macy.
Move approval of the agenda?
Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? We have second by Commissioner Paruch. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to item number 7, the consent agenda. I would like to pull off the topic that we just had public comment on, if I can find it on here. H. All right. Anybody else want to pull anything off? Commissioner Lavasser?
F.
F? Anybody else? All right, that gives us a consent agenda, which consists of City Commission meeting minutes from December 10th, 2018, and January 14th, 2019, claims January 18th and January 29th, 2019, approval of purchase orders, declaration, disposal of surplus property, approval of amendment to license agreement for General Motors use of Memorial Park for the Woodward Dream Cruise, award of contract CAP 1905-2019 concrete street repairs, award of contract for lead-based paint risk assessment and clearance examinations, public library request to fill vacancies, building division request to fill vacancies, receive and file non-action items which include the notice of construction for the 2019 14-mile road construction, 2018 fourth quarter training evaluation forms, and the November 2018 revenue and expenditure summary variance report. Is there a motion? Motion by Commissioner Douglas, second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Item F, Commissioner Lavasser.
Thank you very much. And I see Mr. Callahan has walked into the room. The reason I pulled this, and just so folks know what this is about, we have a contractor we hired for 2018. It was, if I understand, it was pursuant to an open bid process at that time. And Mr. Callahan can confirm that for me if it's accurate for 2018.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, and what this is it's a proposal to extend that contract into 2019 as well, but without opening up bids again. And I tend not to like extensions of contracts in this way. That's why I pulled it off. I wanted to see if there was a compelling reason why we didn't submit this or open this up for bids again for 2019. Maybe this contractor would have been the best bidder again, but there may have been other options out there for us as well that may have been better.
Well, whenever we go out and rebid these things, there's no chance, I mean, there's no guarantee that we're gonna get a better price than what we arranged with this contractor who last year did one of the best jobs that we've had for this particular contract in many years. They did the work, they did it on time, they did it quickly, they made the least amount of disruption to our neighborhoods. And I would add that this particular contract is a contract where we don't exactly know where we're gonna be in the next year. So this contractor is to be very flexible. The majority of the funding for this is from the Water and Sewer Fund. It's where we have water main breaks. It's where we have sewer repairs. It's where we have road damage that the DPS tells us that we need to go and repair. So the contractor is very flexible, and we'd really like them to do the work again this year. But like I said, there's no guarantee that they would be the low bidder on this particular project if we put it out to bid. And there's no guarantee that this price that we've got would be much lower than what somebody else is, considering what we've seen as far as bid prices on other projects. Bid prices are coming in significantly higher this year.
So, Mr. Callahan, to kind of pull away a few statements you made. One, you put it out to bid. We don't get to keep this price. In fact, everyone would get to bid, and then it's no guarantee that it would be a lower price. Two, construction costs are rising, and we're seeing that with things that we're bidding out right now for new projects. And three, given the flexibility nature and the fact that in 2018, this was the best contractor picked less than a year ago, in your judgment, this is the best route to go?
Yes, for this particular project, we'd be very happy to have that contractor come back.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Callahan? Commissioner Dubut.
Yeah, is this kind of contract extension, is it an abnormal procedure in public or private sector?
No, it is not. Contracts are renewed or extended if the prices are reasonable, and in our case, we believe this is very reasonable, with good workmanship and the flexibility that we need for this type of contract. We add on to many of our contracts in this manner. Sometimes we include in the actual initial contract a clause to extend the contract, but this is a particular, I won't call it the problem child contract, but it requires so much individual oversight because the locations of this repair work that's going to be done are all over the city. It's sidewalks, roads, alleys, you name it. We're actually doing work for private homeowners as part of this project, where they call us and ask us to fix their sidewalks or driveway approaches. And this contractor, like I said, did an excellent job last year, and everybody was satisfied with their work.
Commissioner Douglas.
And this, when was this contractor, I mean, they initially were part of a bidding process, correct?
Correct.
And how long ago was that? How long ago was that?
That was in 2017. On the back page, you'll see the bid amounts of all 6 bidders that bid on that project in early 2017.
Right. So, in fact, they were chosen through a fair process, and absolutely came in at the lowest price. And I have to say, as we consider this, I recall back to a couple years ago where we had a contractor doing residential sidewalks, and we were getting complaint after complaint after complaint from citizens where they didn't fill in around the edges, they didn't finish work. And as I think about it, I can think of maybe 1 or 2 complaints that have come to my attention over the course of the past summer, past construction season, about this company. So, bearing out what Mr. Callahan says about the level of their service.
Commissioner Macy.
I just wanted to verify the date. You said 2017. It says here the starting date estimate is
sorry.
April 23rd or 28th.
I'm still writing 2018.
Yeah,
on
right,
my,
me too.
Checks
Understood.
and things, so it would have been early 2018, sorry,
So a year ago.
a year ago.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, there's more risk in seeing an increase going out to bid. And we have validation that less than a year ago, they were the best bidder on this contract. You know, extending it makes sense to me at this time because we know for a fact that construction costs are going up, concrete costs are going up. And I think you risk the hazard. While you might be able to save 1%, you risk having to pay 7% more if especially if the timing of this quotation. I think a lot of these guys have their work scheduled for the year already, and, you know, it's, not to say you couldn't, but I don't know that it's worth the risk for the potential gain. Commissioner Lavasser?
I guess my perspective here is if they're willing to do this work in 2019 for the price as negotiated, they should be willing to make a bid in that amount as well. I really don't see why they wouldn't. It would simply make sense, and it would seem to me that if anything, they would bid that, or maybe even a little less, knowing that we're looking at our other options there. You know, if we do this timely, if we were to place this out to bids in a timely fashion, you know, I see no reason why we couldn't do this or better. I probably wouldn't go with the lowest bidder if it was like a 1% difference. You know, that experience level, working with a contractor and knowing from that experience that's been a positive experience, that would be enough to convince me to vote for the second lowest bidder in a situation like that, if it was basically a minuscule amount of difference. But I do believe we owe it to the taxpayers to, you know, to continuously try to get the best contracts, the best deals we can, and that means using the bid process as much as we can.
Commissioner Douglas.
Okay, unless my math is off, 1% of $316,000 is $3,160. I mean, we would spend that much money in staff time going through the bidding process.
There's not much upside. Commissioner Paruch.
The other thing that I would like to add is looking at the list of these 6 bidders, I know just from watching their work over the past however long I've been around, and a lot of these companies have been around a long time, there are at least 3 on here which I really am uncomfortable with having them coming back and work in the city. I know that their problems haven't risen to the level where the city has said, you absolutely cannot bid on our contracts anymore. But I know from experience in watching them that there are 3 guys on this list who have been problem childs in many different types of instances over the years. And the thought that one of them would come back and be a significant low bidder on this project gives me chills. So for that reason alone, I'm willing to go with a contractor that we have confidence in, that we know does good work, especially since their bid amount, which was just a year old, was fairly consistent with the second highest bidder here. So just from my layperson's experience in terms of what some of these other guys have done, it's great to talk about saving money for the taxpayers. But when you have taxpayers who also are dealing with contractors who don't do the stuff right and who deal with their own properties that are damaged by contractors that don't do stuff right and have to go back and fix it again and again, that's something that we have to take into consideration. It is not always about the monetary bottom line unless the discrepancy is so enormous. And in this instance, it's not. So we really have to look at how the taxpayers are impacted physically by the construction in their neighborhood as well as by the dollars. That's a very serious consideration. And so for that reason alone, because we have a contractor here that has done exceptional work, I'm willing to go with them.
Someone want to make that in the form of a motion?
I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Commissioner Paruch moves the contract. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Further discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. All right, this brings us to item number H, or letter H from the consent agenda, if my screen will work here properly. And I pulled this off. I think Mr. Shepherd, we remember him from December. We had some discussion, and I guess my question is what I'm trying to understand a little bit better, maybe more articulating. Is there a reason why? I mean, if there's a move here for Mr. Shepherd to actually start developing the property, which we thought was a good idea back in the day, which I don't have any reason to believe it's still not a good idea, why we wouldn't extend it or, put it out there for a few more months or extend it till we actually get, a building permit pulled or something like that, put a time frame on it. I mean, can we get a little bit more backstory on the recommendation to terminate it, maybe? Mr. Murphy?
Sure. Our office had worked with the Recreation Department to go around to different parks and come up with some ideas for new recreational opportunities in the city. This particular park falls within our community development block grant zone, so it is a potentially eligible park for location to do some additional recreational equipment. In looking at this particular site, it's a very large park, however, most of it's occupied or taken up by the ball fields, and so a location to have some recreational equipment suitable for children or young adults would be, the most logical place would be in this location, which would be out of the use or the zone of the ball fields and the soccer fields. In looking at a potential opportunity at this particular portion of the park for adding some equipment, we recalled the fact that there was an outstanding license agreement, and that would present an obstacle for us to be able to accomplish installing some equipment potentially. So we went back to our records and reviewed the fact that it has been nearly a decade since approval and the execution of the license agreement, and no activity, unfortunately, has been taken in implementing the approved site plan and the extension of the city's parking lot. So with that, we had made a recommendation to terminate the license agreement due to the fact that it's been nearly 10 years and no activity has taken place. Whether the potential park improvement projects happen at the site or not, we'd like to see some resolution to the outstanding license agreement, and we certainly wouldn't be in any objection to an extension of the agreement or any recognition that it's still outstanding. Simply would like some resolution to it.
Commissioner Macy.
This came before the Parks and Rec and Senior Services Committee last month, and Mr. Murphy brought it to us, and we looked at the range of things we could do with our CDBG money for this next year and various parks where we could put different things. And among the options, this was one that was pretty highly favored by the board, and I believe, in fact, they made a recommendation to, I thought it was supposed to come to this body, to approve this as one of the spots that we would be including. And as I know you know, Mayor, this is a spot where there's a lot of softball, baseball, and soccer played. And the thought, I thought you might be, and the thought was to have like a small little playground area off of there, because right now the siblings spend, or at least mine do, spend their time climbing trees when the soccer and baseball's going on. So maybe we could give them something besides trees to climb. So in any case, the Parks and Rec and Senior Services, who were aware of the license but didn't, of course, look into it deeply because that wasn't in front of them, but they did make a recommendation based on the options that this would be a good site for that kind of, for the CDBG money to be used this next year.
Anything else for Mr. Murphy? So what I gather is we have a license agreement that's about 10 years old. We haven't seen any action on it. We have the opportunity to use some federal dollars to make improvements to the park. And because of the use of the park with the softball fields, the soccer fields, all the activity that takes place there, there's a very limited, selection of available real estate, which probably the best piece would be here where this proposed parking lot opportunity is. Furthermore, not just with Warden Park, but the Parks and Rec Committee looked at all of our assets that would fall under the CBDG grant, mechanism. And this one, would you say, I think I heard Commissioner Macy say, met one of the top priorities to get some sort of equipment there if we qualify for that CBDG grant. Right?
Almost completely correct, except we did not look at, the Parks and Rec and Senior Services Board did not look at the entirety of the land available. That was, the recommendations were brought to us by Mr. Murphy of a selection of some of the things they had gone around and looked and brought it back to us.
When would we know, Mr. Murphy, if we qualified for the grant or not?
Hopefully, we'll find out the federal government is back open today. Hopefully, they're back to work and they can move forward with informing at some point in the near future, hopefully the next 2 months, as to our allocation for next fiscal year, which starts in July. We have a couple of parks that we had highlighted as potential locations for CDBG-funded projects, this being simply one of them. So that'll go in front of the Rehabilitation Board of Appeals for their review and recommendation to you as City Commission to make the ultimate decision as to how to spend the funds for next year.
So we really don't have anything on the table right now, but nothing prevents us from exploring that option and deciding later if it doesn't work out, where we don't get an opportunity here, reopening and doing a new licensing agreement if we think that's, the next best opportunity for us. If the grant thing doesn't work out for this park, correct? Nothing, there's nothing prohibitive. It's just ending this one and saying, hey, we're gonna see what happens with the CBDG funding, and if nothing really happens, we can discuss doing another license agreement. If we wanted to, if this commission wanted to. Commissioner Douglas.
So did they, refresh my memory, we approved a site plan for the building that they were going to develop. Is that site plan still valid?
It has been longer than a year. Under the zoning ordinance, it's valid for a year. Staff does have some liberties of extending it. That amount of time is quite generous.
Staff has the liberty of extending it, but 10 years is kind of a long extension. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Commissioner Lavasser?
A couple questions, and I'll address one to Mr. Gillum. The first question is, how much notice do we need to give to terminate the license agreement, if you know offhand?
Paragraph 11 of the agreement doesn't provide for a specific period of notice. It just provides that it can be terminated by written notice.
So essentially at will?
Correct.
All right. All right.
Based upon a failure to comply with the conditions of the agreement, and my position would be one of the conditions, in fact, one of the premises for the agreement originally was the fact that there was an approved site plan for the property, and there no longer is. So.
Okay. And the other for Mr. Murphy?
Correct.
Right. If we're to get these grant funds, would we have a time restraints on when we need to actually make the improvements with them?
They do need to be implemented. It's more governed by us meeting some spending thresholds in the total dollar value of our community development block grant program. So if a project is approved, we try and act upon it as expeditiously as possible, knowing that we have to bid through potentially the winter for a spring start to try to meet a deadline of expending the funds by typically June of the following year.
Commissioner Macy.
I was just going to ask if we could hear from Mr. Shepherd about the timeline and what his plans are.
Come on up, Mr. Shepherd.
One comment I'd like to make on the licensing agreement. When I first came to the planning department on putting this building there, I showed them a building which was significantly smaller than the one I was going to build. The city came to me and said, well, what if we extended a licensing agreement on the parking so that you can build a bigger building? It would be of much benefit to the Parks and Recreation because they have a limited amount of parking there where you have people that are parking up on the lawn occasionally. There's not enough parking for the softball fields, the soccer fields. And so what I was proposing is to build not only 30 cars of parking for my building, but an additional 30 cars of parking to be used all the time for the city. My concern, and you may want to consider this, if you're going to build a recreation area to attract children to come play, you don't even have enough parking for the Parks and Recreation now, for softball, baseball, the soccer fields. You're going to bring another attractive use of the park, and you don't have enough parking. I'm building a 60-car parking lot where the city will get exclusive use of 30 of the cars all the time, and an additional 30 cars when my business is not open. So I think you ought to take into consideration, if you put a recreational facility there that you think is just going to be a entertainment center for people playing softball and baseball for their kids, they're not going to be watching the game, they're going to let their kids go over and play right along Crooks Road. Don't necessarily think that's a great idea. But if in fact you do put a additional children's play area there, you're going to need additional parking for it. You're underparked now, and that's why this whole thing came to be. So consider that if you put an additional entertainment center or additional activity there, when you are asking me to build 60 cars of parking because you needed the parking for Parks and Recreation, and it was going to be a great benefit to Parks and Recreation. I'm not trying to stop a children's play area. Okay, I even told Joseph that if in fact I can work with the city and there's some way we can modify something with the parking to accommodate all of it, I'd be happy to do that. I'm not trying to stop a children's parking area. Yes, I am guilty of not getting the project off the ground when I thought I was, okay? But I still want to develop it. I'm still willing to cover all of the expense of it, all of the insurance of it, all of the maintenance of it to build my building.
Commissioner Gibbs?
I appreciate your concern about the parking at the park. Parking at the park. It sounded funny. Given our previous, not with you, but discussions about Normandy Oaks and the park that's being developed there, can I ask you to maybe pull out your crystal ball and give us possibly an idea of what kind of time frame we're looking at here?
Ironically, before I got the notice back in December, I had put the parking lot out to bid again. So I am in the process of doing that. And I anticipate the building to be a year to 2 years maximum out before I would be able to get it out of the ground. But that's, you know, I can't give you an exact date, but my intent is to build the building. I've invested a substantial amount of monies in plans and engineering. I've gone to the county about the underground 12-mile drain there to put the parking in. I'm very involved and know what's going on with that particular piece of property. And it is a beautiful, traditional Georgian building, 4,200 square feet. The neighbors are happy with the type of building and the setbacks I'm going to do there. But it didn't get out of ground on the time I thought it would. But I would really consider what you're going to do as far as adding more required parking for something that is under-parked now, okay? And I don't know, Joseph, if you agree with that, but you know, that's why we started this whole process before, and the city was very excited about having 60 cars of additional parking for not only, you know, the day-to-day sports events that happen there, but when Arts, Beats, and Eats come to town, you all now have another 60 cars of parking for that type of event. And I'm extending all the usage of it on the non-business hours and on the weekends on Saturday and Sunday as well. And totally at my expense, zero expense for construction, maintenance, and insuring of that parking lot. It's a pretty sweet deal for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. I'm going to go with, actually, Commissioner Paruch, because she hasn't had a chance to speak yet on the topic. Commissioner Paruch?
Mr. Shepherd, the license agreement required you to provide insurance for the property for the duration of the license agreement, which it's my understanding you have not done.
That is not correct.
Okay.
I have to, once I build the parking lot, I am required to insure the parking lot, maintain the parking lot, and to provide lighting, irrigation, everything necessary. But there's nothing to insure when the parking lot is not there.
Well, the land is insurable. And the license agreement doesn't say, you have to insure it when you put up the building. It says you shall maintain a comprehensive general liability insurance.
On the parking lot.
I don't think that's what it means unless I'm.
Well, my attorney said it's on the parking lot. So Dave, I don't know what your interpretation of that is, but I can't see putting $1 million worth of liability on a city piece of grass right now when there's no liability. I mean, we're not parking on it, we're not using it. I don't know.
As I recall the discussion at the city commission table at the time, I think the intention was to make the insurance requirement applicable when Mr. Shepherd actually began to use the property.
And you're not using it at all now?
No, I'm not.
Okay. You don't have site plan approval? The site plan that you had is expired, apparently?
Yeah, correct. I submitted full plans to the city. The city had approved the plans with contingencies. I had to address some issues with the city, and those were not followed through with, so the building permit expired, basically.
And the site plan has expired, too?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you have plans to resubmit a site plan anytime soon?
I would like to do the building within the next 1.5 to 2 years. That's my plan. And like I said, I've gone out to bid with the additional parking.
But you don't have an approved site plan for that additional parking?
The site plan will be identical to what for example, if I take my plans that I submitted back in 2009, give them back to the city, those could be approved and go forward. There's nothing that I have to re-engineer or do. It's all done.
But you still have to go through the site plan approval process
Oh,
of
absolutely.
staff and the site plan
Absolutely.
and the planning
Pay all
commission.
my permit fees, everything that's associated with getting a permit for the city.
And you say that you're going to build within the next year or two, but you have no plans to submit any plans anytime soon?
Well,
For the site plan approval process, which takes a period of months?
what I'm in the process of right now is making sure that it's cost effective for me to build the building, and so I'm out to bid on those. Once I have those done, I will determine the time when I submit that to the city for approval. So if you're asking me to guarantee you that the building will be out of the ground within 12 months, I'm not in a position to do that. I'm just being very honest with you. But I am moving forward to get all my bids and my documentation so I can submit it back to the city.
And do you have to deal with any kind of permit from the Drain Commission, since you've got the drain running
Yes,
underground?
I've already been in contact with the Drain Commission.
How long is that permit process, do you know?
I don't know exactly what the drain permission, it's Oakland County because it's the underground tube
Sure.
drain that runs through there. And basically, it's just changing the elevation of a manhole on the site.
Okay. All right, those are my questions. Thanks.
Commissioner Lavasser.
Could you give us some insights as to the reason behind the delay and, how the circumstances might be different so that we might have confidence that we're not going to have another long delay?
If the city wants, if the city wants to say you have to have the building up and operational in 2 years, I'm happy, to abide by that. I am also in development in Troy. I own buildings in Troy. I own 6 or 7 different properties in the city of Royal Oak. I buy apartment buildings and refurbish apartment buildings. So it just got, because of the economic times back in 2009, it was not a good time to build it. I'm all up to date on all my other projects, and I am ready to move forward on this building. I don't have a specific date I can tell you that I'm going to have it out of the ground, but I'm in the bid process to do that.
Commissioner Macy.
I just wanted to follow up a little bit. So if you had been at Parks and Rec, you would have known that I was a thorn in Mr. Murphy's side because I argued vociferously that we do need, in fact, more parking there because I've had 3 kids go through the soccer program and had to go through that lot where there's not any parking on a Sunday morning, or Saturday morning. But just so the commission knows, I made those arguments to the Parks and Rec and Senior Services Board, and they were unmoved by my arguments, basically under the idea that we're looking at this piece of land now. Maybe 10 years ago, we thought the best use of this piece of land was to add additional parking. Right now, even with the strain on the parking, which does definitely occur during the Saturday mornings soccer and also during some of the evening softball and baseball and soccer games, it would be a better use to keep this green area and put this play structure up. And we did talk, in fact, that if there were a play structure, there would definitely have to be a fence because it's so close to Crooks Road. And so that was their take on that as well. Just to inform the commission what the final say on that was from that board.
Commissioner Dubak. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the kind of summary of the discussion of Parks and Recs. I'm listening and struggling. I think you make a very strong case for the benefit of increased parking there, but for me, if we have a chance to program what's an existing green space, to turn an existing green space into pavement, for me is a really high bar for the public benefit. So I'd like Mr. Murphy's take on is that, I mean, I've been to games there too when they have baseball and soccer going on. It gets a little tight, we have to park over by the ice arena and walk from that angle sometimes, but there's always plenty there. Is it planning's interpretation that we are under-parked here to the extent that this is a problem, that it's worth paving what is right now a green space into more parking lot? Because we have done this in other spaces with the angled parking next to Whittier and other places where we knew we needed relief. And does this rise to that level?
I would have to defer that to the Parks and Rec, Parks Department and seek their input. They're at the parks during the programs more frequently than I am, and it sounds like many in this room are certainly at the parks more frequently than I am during those programs. As Commissioner Macy had stated, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board did discuss the opportunities that it would present for those that do come to the site for one particular event, the facilities that are there, and that if they bring people of other ages that are seeking recreational opportunities, that would be an opportunity to have everybody have something to do at the park. But as far as the parking usage, I couldn't speak to that and the demand level at certain points. I'm not that well-versed, sorry.
I also don't, and I raised 5 children in the city of Royal Oak, and I know that Crooks Road corridor right there, there's no way in the world I would put a child's playscape because the depth of the parking lot's 80 feet deep from Crooks Road. That's just my personal opinion as a citizen. So,
Commissioner Dubak. Yeah, and I appreciate that too. I don't know that we can put barriers and fencing and that kind of stuff for public safety. So that's not my primary concern. My primary concern is whether or not the need for more parking there rises to the level of paving what is right now a green space. And I think in the community we've had really sensitive conversations about protecting and preserving our green space unless there's a very clear, overwhelming public benefit. And I'm not convinced yet that public benefit is there in this case right now.
Commissioner Macy.
Oh, one more question for Mr. Shepherd. So you talked about this being a 60-space lot, 30 for your building and then 30 for the city. It sounds like some people at this table are saying maybe we don't want those extra 30 for the city, we'd rather leave it as a green space. How would that impact your plans?
Basically, it's a several $100,000 parking lot, okay? I'd be delighted if the city said, go ahead and build your parking lot, we'll only use 30 spaces. As I told Joseph, I said, if there's a way to work it out, that you can still put your playscape there and we can still do parking, let's work it out. I'm very, very open to that. I only need 30 cars of parking for the medical building to meet code, okay? But as part of an enticement for the city, I said, as a citizen, I will even build an additional 30 cars at my cost and all expenses and all liability if we can do this deal together.
See, Mr. Shepherd.
And again, this was not
I have a quick question for
Sure.
you. What is so you said that the requirement was to have 30 additional spaces there. What do you think you need for your building?
It's 30.
30
I mean,
cars.
per code, but do you feel that the code is overstretched, or is it the code appropriate?
No, 30
for
cars
what
of
you
parking for a 4,200 square foot building is fine.
Is appropriate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I build parking lots all the time, and I know the requirements, and I just did additional parking lots at other buildings in Troy, and I'm very.
Sometimes we have uses where the, code applies, but they're going to get 3 patrons a day, and you're basically paving over green space for 3
If
patrons.
you know the space right now, the parking lot runs along Crooks Road, and then there's just I don't know what the exact length of it, it's probably 120, maybe 130 feet long, where we're going to put this parking, and then I own the property from there to the corner, okay? And if you wanted to put a playscape between the existing city parking lot and the 30 cars that I was going to build, okay, I'll put a private entrance there and let the city use that on the weekends and nights for the playscape if they want to. I still think you're probably going to have a little bit of an issue with the city parking for events, or not events, but soccer and baseball that occurs on that corner. But you're more than welcome to use that parking in the non-business hours if you want for the children's playscape, and I'd be happy to work something out. It will cost me less money.
So where I think we're heading on this one is, I think for me at least, I have 3 kids, and we have so many soccer games at Warden Park that I've literally had to watch 2 of my kids playing back to back, where I watch one and then I turn around and on the other field, just do a 180 to watch them play. And yeah, that parking lot gets a little busy, and sometimes we've had to go to the high school and park and walk over, which is usually great on a nice summer day. Some of those later games in the fall, it's a little bit treacherous when it's ice storming out. And sometimes we park at the ice arena and even in front of the tennis courts. So sometimes it's a little bit of a hike, but I think, you time it right, it's not dire. There could be other use times that may not be so peak, but I think for us, I don't think we want to rule out the opportunity of working on some sort of parking arrangement if it means you're going to bring a nice development to the area. However, I also don't think that we should rule out the opportunity to see what could potentially come from CBDG. So I think for me, I have no problem letting the license terminate and then look at maybe doing a different type of license once we understand a little bit better what we can do there. Is that even the best spot? Maybe there's somewhere else on the park. So I don't know that we would have interest in working. You own the property right there in the corner, so I don't know that anybody else is going to come in and swoop it away from you and say, oh, I want to put a parking lot in there for, to put my building up that's 3 miles away. So I think, it sounds bad to let it terminate, but I also think that I don't see, I'm not getting a feeling of strict opposition to working with you on a better arrangement that may only require 30. I think what we had with the 60 spaces may have made sense at the time, but we've kind of grown a little bit since then. We've looked and viewed our parks a little differently. I understand that, maybe, you'd think that it would increase parking, but I can tell you, there are so many families coming to Royal Oak. We're busting at the seams, which is a great thing. Kindergarten enrollment is up, but usually when I'm there for one kid's soccer game, my other 2 kids are climbing trees. And Commissioner Macy, usually with Commissioner Macy's kids or Commissioner Dubuck's kids. So a lot of siblings can go there and play. But I don't want to prejudice that decision without knowing what we're exactly, maybe it's a small place game, maybe we don't qualify for it and it all becomes a moot point. But I think that we can show flexibility if we let this thing expire and kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit once we understand what our options are for Borden Park. I don't know that we'd use up that whole space. There'd probably be some left over for some sort of parking arrangement. And I think that might be best for the city to look at on this end. But I'd be interested what my colleagues think. Commissioner
Well, let
Douglas?
me just tell you, if you're going to pull the licensing agreement so that I don't have it, it doesn't officially exist, then there's no sense in me moving forward with these contractors and putting them through the bid process to build the parking lot. I just want you to understand that. I'll put it on hold, shelve it. I don't have to develop the building.
Yeah, it might go on delay. It might be delayed for a little bit, but I think in the
it-
next few months for us to, I don't think a few month delay is, Mr. Murphy said that we would have a better understanding what the CBDG, outlook would be in a few months, now that the federal government is back to work. And I think that information, if it's a delay of a few months, you know what I mean? I know that, it's been 10 years for you. What's a few months? For us, we don't mind a few months to make sure that we do what's right. It could save you some money too. You might not have to, you might get a better arrangement out of it that's less costly, both insurance-wise and, for construction-wise. So.
There's 2 other options too. What if I build the parking lot and get it out of the ground?
I don't know. I don't really want to negotiate at the table. It's an idea.
Let's talk.
I'll let Commissioner Douglas actually has the floor real quick. We'll let her She rightfully has the floor. Sorry, Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I don't see a downside to letting the licensing agreement ride. We can terminate it at any time. We can wait until we see the results of the CDBG grants and see if we get the money. And even then, we can say, well, we didn't get it this time, but we're going to put it in for the next round of funding, or maybe we won't. I mean, meanwhile, why should he spend money on lawyers, having to negotiate a new agreement at some time? Why should Mr. Gillum spend his time renegotiating a new agreement? Well, we can just let this ride for as long as we need, 6 months until the federal grant program is announced, and bring it back to the table then.
I appreciate that, and I will tell you, the city came to me with the idea for the parking, and I agreed with it, and we developed it, and Dave and I worked on the licensing agreement, and it to me, was a win-win for everybody. Back then, you needed parking 9 years ago. I can't imagine, as you say, with the growth that we've got in the city today, that you don't need additional parking.
Mr. Gill, let me ask a question. I think Commissioner Douglas brings up kind of an interesting spin on maybe where my head was at, and actually a more preferential spin in my brain. What is if we extend it for 6 months, what are the damages? And I want Mr. Shepherd to know, if all of a sudden we get a really amazing CBDG deal, hey, man, sorry, we extended this 6 months. I know you went out bidding or whatever, but, for the community, this gem of a grant that we got is so fantastic. We're just going to shake you loose and move forward with this. What's the penalty for us to do if that situation? We're trying to go do everything in good faith, but as a message of good faith, if something really spectacular comes up,
Dave, I don't anticipate any penalty. If you got to pull it for some reason, I don't think it's a wise decision. But if you have to pull it, I understand that you think you have the ability just to pull it. I understand that if I didn't meet any of the terms and conditions of the agreement, which wasn't directly related to a timing on putting the building into the ground, okay? It was on being outside of the covenants of the agreement that you could terminate the agreement. That's my understanding of it, but I don't want to get into legalese here. But I'm open, if you feel, Joseph, that you need to have, and Melanie, that you need to have it for the Parks and Recreation to do something there creative on the site, I'll work with you whatever way I can. I'm easy.
Well, in my opinion, the city commission has the authority to terminate the agreement tonight if it wanted to, based upon the fact that there is not compliance because there is no longer an approved site plan for the property. At the same time, the commission has the discretion. I don't think you even actually have to affirmatively extend the license agreement. Until it's terminated, the license agreement will remain in place.
Okay.
And in terms of potential issues that Mr. Shepherd and his company might have down the road, I don't believe that would be an issue, because I think if Mr. Shepherd wasn't on notice in December, he's clearly on notice tonight. That the city commission is considering terminating the license agreement based upon what information you get from the federal government on the grant opportunities.
Okay. So actually no action is action tonight. No action is also, can fulfill the idea that Commissioner Douglas had.
Status quo, correct.
Status quo.
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Macy?
But nothing would stop Mr. Shepherd from throwing a parking lot in there in the next 3 months. He's out to bid right now, and thus preventing us from using funds or taking the park back at that time without.
Well, we'd have to approve the site plan and everything for the parking lot.
You have the control of the strings, because basically you can go to the planning department and say, don't approve it, we want it.
As of tonight, Mr. Shepherd has absolutely no right to build anything anywhere on that property because there is no approved site plan.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Douglas.
Actually, just to resolve discussion here, I'm going to make a motion that we not take any action on item H.
Is that a thing?
Is that a thing?
You know what, it is now, apparently.
Or we could talk about
We have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. I have so many things to say. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Gibbs. Okay, discussion.
This seems unnecessary.
I agree, but it moves the meeting along.
Okay. It is a motion, though.
I'll just add, aside from the motion on the table, a motion to do nothing. I'll say, look, Mr. Shepherd, I appreciate you coming up here, appreciate you talking about it. I hope you understand that this commission is working with you in good faith, but also we're working in good faith with our residents and all of our stakeholders in this community. And we're going to do good by everyone to the extent that we can.
If you want to pull the licensing agreement tonight and walk away from a couple $100,000 parking lot for the kids, you can do that. If you
The
want
16-year-old plus kids.
16-year-old plus kids. If you want to look at where you're going to put a child's playscape on the highway there where you don't have parking now, I think it's something that deems further discussion by everybody.
We're affording ourselves that opportunity to have that discussion as a community. So with no other discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
So I understand it's still in place until further notice.
Status quo.
Great.
The
Thank you.
motion to do nothing. Put that one on your resume, Commissioner Douglas. I move to do nothing.
Hey, it stopped discussion.
Hey, you got it. Hey, we're now on to the next
Chilly
agenda
out there.
item. All righty, that brings us to our first agenda item tonight, which is item number 8, Commission for the Arts Annual Report. Mr. Krazan.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Commission. Annually, the Commission for the Arts is required to report on the progress that it's making towards achieving the goals and objectives that it sets out each year. So you guys had received a written report in the packet, and to help present that tonight, we have the Commission for the Arts Chair, Jason Gittinger, and the Co-Chair, Jody Ellison. So I'll invite them up to do so.
Real quick before we start, Mr. Gittinger, I just want to also, I don't know if I formally congratulated you for being the Chamber's Business Person of the Year. I know that's a great honor. It's well-deserved. You are truly a person, just here tonight, listening to us ramble on about so many topics. You volunteer for the Arts Committee. You do so many things in the community, the concert series, you take leadership, and you're just a prime example that all of us and our kids and everyone can look up to as far as being a business owner, being involved in the community, being a good dad, a good husband. Really, it's a well-deserved, I would say, not just Business Person of the Year, but, if not Person of the Year. So, and Jody, you're awesome too. But I just needed an opportunity to publicly recognize Jason.
No, you stole my thunder. I was gonna congratulate him, but fine.
I appreciate that, thank you. But it's not me, it's all of us. I just happen to be the one that's at the tip of a spear of a bunch of people. By the way, which is represented in this report, there's hundreds of people that are involved in all of the things that we're involved in the
Right.
city, and not the least of which, tons of scarves for all those who are cold tonight at the library.
Commissioner Reski is busy working
There
on
you go.
that, yep.
So, thank you. Questions about this stuff? Any questions about this report?
Commissioner Dubuck.
I'm just wondering if you want to share just a few highlights while you're doing this.
I'll be honest, like I sit here every time and I think about a bunch of great stuff to say, and then it all gets beat out of me for the first hour and a half of sitting here. So I apologize.
That's a common thing, for us.
I'm serious, it all goes away, and I don't take notes because I'm not gonna sit here and read a speech to you. It's truly all of you that, are the ones that make this stuff happen. We just get to be the ones that get to have fun doing it and spend a whole lot of time with James trying to chase down spots to put sculptures or some things that are happening right now. We have the summer concert series happening. We're working on the public piano project again this year. Currently, the current project that happens in the wintertime
Is the Sharing the Warmth project with the scarves, the hats, the mittens, handmade ones that are out. And we have gone through several turnovers of the display in front of the library. So anybody who knits or crochets or sews, please feel free to donate handmade items so that we can install them so that people who are cold, underserved warmth, I guess.
By the way, where do we get the yarn for that?
A lot of that is donated too. We've gotten yarn from Unique Knits, we've gotten yarn from Have You Any Wool. A lot of our crafters have donated from their own stash. We've had people who've actually gone through their parents' estates when they're done and just given us bundles and bundles of yarn. And our artisans usually take it home and just knit, 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 and crochet and bring stuff back, and it gets installed outside and inside in the library, so it's incredibly impressive.
Other stuff going on, we have Artist Laureate program we've been working on this year, which is in process. I don't know where we stand with that, James.
We should be putting out a call for applications for Artist Laureate in the next few weeks.
Right. And we should be at the point just about where we start to solicit for the Art Explored program.
Art Explored as well. Also, the Community Arts Award.
Exactly.
So all that stuff is coming pretty soon.
Celebration of the Arts, the first weekend in June at the middle school. We have a new committee chair for that. We have, what's the last one? Oh, shoot. We're working on a poetry and songwriting thing to happen in conjunction with the library, hopefully. So that should be kind of fun. So
A couple of other quiet things bubbling around. At one with the library and some new ceiling tiles that we heard a little rumor going around. So that could be really exciting, you know, watch this space. That could be good.
other questions?
You know, maybe Jody Ellison, I know you've been a catalyst and a rock since the Commission for the Arts was first established. Maybe you can, for the folks that, you know, might be newer to this idea or might be just finding out about the Commission for the Arts, can you kind of give the cliff notes of your story, our story, as it relates to the arts, and how much progress that you've made and what a great example it is for our community?
Oh, goodness. And actually, I thank you for that. I do defer to Jason. He's actually been on the commission from the beginning, along with, I think Commissioner Dubuck was on from the beginning. Were you there first?
I was the second one appointed.
You were the second. Who was the first? Well, I know
At the
the
time, Mayor
mayor
Ellison
was
sat
on.
there.
I know the mayor was on, the former mayor was on, but I didn't realize he was the representative, and now Commissioner Paruch. So just a little background, it's what, about 6, 7 years now? The idea came up that a city that was growing and vibrant as Royal Oak is, would do well to have art represented publicly throughout the city, and to bring all the disparate arts communities together for the good of the community. So a commission was formed, started out with probably the 11 Mile Art Project was one of the first ones. And then Art Explored, and then the Summer Concert Series, and just within the first couple of years, 2 or 3 major projects. So in the 7 years that the commission has been together, we have done probably 6 or 7 major initiatives to bring art and interactive art and public serving art to the community. We are always open to input from the community. We do like to hear projects that they think would be worthwhile, that would,
Can I say one thing?
Always.
By the
you
way,
know that.
we're
He is
happy to
the
hear from lots of
spearhead.
people, but we want to remind everybody, we're all volunteers.
Yes, we are.
And yelling at us does not make us want to help more. I say that half joking, but half serious, because there are times when this forum is used for one side versus another, and I'll be honest with you, that's great for those who want to do that, but I don't have time for that. I have a lot of things to do. I have kids. Like, even sometimes sitting here, you know, the 30 minutes for various topics when you're standing here, it's no offense to the topic, because I've been some of those topics at times, but man, sometimes you're just like, man, I just beat down by life. So I say that to say, we're here to make great things in our community. We're here to make people smile, and sometimes it may not work. It may not work properly, or it doesn't work the way it's supposed to, but the more that people whose mission is to encourage and support each other, which is what our Arts Commission is supposed to do that both publicly and hey, if somebody if they think that a piece of artwork on the library lawn is upsetting, man, I'd love to hear that. I want them to come sit in my office and tell me why that's the case and why it is offensive or those kinds of things. But sometimes when it's public shots or even Facebook comments or stuff like that, those things are incredibly hurtful to people who are doing this for either very little money or very
Or no money.
or no money at all. So there's hundreds of people in this report, which is the page I pulled up for you, at least for the people in the audience to see. And those people don't do this because they need your attention, most of them, right? They do this because they love our community, they love the arts, and they want to make sure that we all do things that encourage each other to smile and to have a great day. So if there's one bastion of togetherness that this city has currently, I think this is one of those things, and sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good, you're good, and I think it's important what Jason said, and to address the fact that we're all adults here. We understand art is subjective, art is provocative. That's why art exists. Art is not quantitative. It's not quantitative. Art is something that exists because we have a society and it's allowed to exist. It isn't part of, well, it kind of is part of why we're here, but it's not one of the things people look at as necessary. We're kind of a step above, and we're fortunate in this community to be able to go that step above, providing shelter, providing food. We get art. Aren't we lucky to be living in this community where we have so many amazing volunteers and where we have a city commission, a city administration that supports the desire and actually the need for art and engagement. Public engagement is huge. It's a safe way to get people to express their opinions on both sides of the table.
I love it. Any other questions for us?
This is how our meetings go, too.
Can you guys go any
We kind
deeper?
of all sit there, we do this kind of stuff, it's adorable, there's tea and...
By the way, I love the idea earlier, but I'm about to say publicly at a meeting that I love the idea earlier of shining something on the side of the building like they did.
Yeah,
at the Ford
we've
thing.
talked about
That's
that
a
for a
great
long
idea.
time. Yeah.
I'd love to know, as the chair of the Commission for the Arts, how do we get the things in place to make that happen? Usually it's somebody needs to pay for it, so where does that come from? So, which is the thing I say at most meetings. I say that to say, I've been informed earlier this evening when I walked into the room that months or years ago, I might have made a comment about a park that might be here someday, and wouldn't it be great if it had a stage or something like that? If I say that publicly, I'm thinking out loud. I didn't present like any kind of plans for a public stage or anything like that. So
Yeah, and we don't agree on that either, the amphitheater and blah, 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 this is how this goes.
We all have things that we think are great ideas or whatever, but they're not always done by a person. They're done by all of us going to meetings and showing up and saying, that'd be great, or this would be great, and we all sort of make things better. The challenging part with the arts is the piece of artwork or the piece of music or the piece of poetry or whatever is that one person's perspective, and we can highlight some of them. Some are different than others, and we can make some fairly great things happen. So with that.
Mm-hmm. And with most of our installations, they don't last forever. They're up for a year or two. If you don't like it, we replace it.
Well, I think we can say and all agree, what you're doing is working.
Thank you.
So, you know,
Thank you.
we realize that you have really tough decisions to make as far as what's displayed, how to govern, coming up with creativity in a systemized way, which seems almost oxymoronic. But you guys, and we also know that it's not just you two, that there's hundreds of people that participate and celebrate our community through art, and it's a treasure. Okay, some other people want to talk. Commissioner Macy?
I was just wondering, are you at all involved with the PTA Reflections Contest that happens every year?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
At least not officially.
That would be great. And at some of our schools I know, including the middle school, have trouble finding a chairperson for that, so if maybe you could partner with them, and they always need judges.
It's always great if community groups reach out, because we do love collaborations. We want to be careful not to insert ourselves into things, but because we do have the support of the city and the support of the commission, it's nice to bring light to other projects that might be underserved through this auspice.
Yeah.
Commissioner Paruch?
First of all, I'm the city commission representative to this commission. It has been delightful to work with these people. Very creative, lots of wonderful, wonderful ideas. The meetings are very dynamic in terms of a lot of ideas exchange. A lot of people have new programs that they would like to suggest. Jason is correct that because we're all volunteers, we have limited time and effort that we can put into a new project, but new things keep coming along. The Artist Laureate Program, which James said is going to get kicked off with applications, is one that I'm really excited about, because we are learning, the more the Commission for the Arts does projects in the city and is out in the community, the more we realize how many very talented artistic people live in our community. And it's not just visual artists, painters and sculptors and so on. We have poets living here. We have talented published writers living in our community. We have people who are in the performance arts, dance and theater and so on. There are literally hundreds of them in the community, most of them operating without any kind of public recognition and knowledge that they're actually there, but yet nationally they're recognized. So this is an opportunity through the Artist Laureate Program to recognize annually one artist who lives in our community of some type, visual, writing, whatever, and provide that person with an opportunity to create a public outreach program, whether it's in the schools or in the senior community or anywhere else, to connect their artistic knowledge with a much larger group of people in the community. It has worked very effectively in other communities across the country, and it's a very exciting, wonderful project, and the community loves it because they get to experience art in a completely new way with people that are just live down the street from them. So we're really excited about that program. But it's a tremendous group of people. As Jason said, there are hundreds of people who are indirectly involved with this program. The celebration of the arts that happens at the middle school at the beginning of June involves not only artistic presentations by our senior citizen art classes, some of whom are, many of them are extraordinary if you go and see the work. All of the musical organizations in the community, the symphony orchestra, the concert band, the schools and so on, they put on musical performances. That one day, that one Saturday just celebrates so many artistic people in the community. And so when you see this list in front of you, you need to multiply it by 3 or 4 times because that's really how many people are involved in this organization and these types of activities. So I'll just say it's been, so far, been a great experience for me. It's expanded my knowledge and my understanding of a lot of these different types of artistic expression. And the community needs to take advantage of these opportunities because they're there, they're free, and it's exciting stuff. So thank you for all your work, and this will be a great year.
Love it. And by the way, what we do is a rounding error for most of everything else you do. Like, it's very cheap. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Commissioner Dubuck?
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to say, thank you for all your work. Everything you're doing is being felt by the community. We can see it over the time since we've established this committee. It's more and more and more visible, and you can feel it impacting the fabric of our community, and it's really meaningful. And like you said, we're not investing a ton of money in it, so it's really just the fruits of your labor that you're donating, and it's very much appreciated. So that I will move to accept your report.
Yeah, motion by Commissioner Dubuck, second by Commissioner Lavasser. Discussion? Commissioner Macy, I think, had her.
I was going to move approval.
Oh, you're going to move approval? Yeah, I just had one question before the motion was going to be made. Commissioner Dubuck was asking if you're going to have a Last Supper paint-by-number contest at all this year?
If you enter.
It's really weird. Okay.
Or sponsor.
Some of us that lack art skills. Sorry, little inside joke. Any other discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We've accepted your report.
Thank
you. The 7th year.
Thanks to James. He deserves a raise.
He does.
We promise not to take it out of the arts program. All right, that brings us to item number 2, which is the special event permit for Motor City Gas and food truck events.
Mayor, City Commission, we do have a request from Mr. Lockwood to allow food trucks on his property. It's a fairly simple request. The events will occur one day per week between the hours of 12 p.m. and 11 p.m. If the event occurs on Sunday, it'll end at 8 p.m. In a nutshell, that's it, one food truck in his lot. It should be pointed out, though, that due to some building issues, he can, his interior capacity is set at 45, but in total, in between the lot and his building, he cannot not have more than 49 people total. Mr. Lockwood is here, and I believe this is a request for the entire month of April. I think he's going to make a request to have one permit for the entire summer. Generally, with special events, we'd permit the event. Something that's continually going on, it wouldn't necessarily be a special event, but this is unique. So we decided a month would be fair.
Any questions for the chief? Commissioner Macy?
So when this was last before us, I thought one of the things that was discussed was that we could do a special event permit that was for multiple events over multiple months. I mean, that was certainly what I was expecting at the conclusion of the last time this was in front of us.
Well, when it was proposed, and if I misspoke, it's my fault, but it was, we could possibly allow food trucks at Motor City Gas, which seemed to be what the goal was, through the special event process. In doing that and working with Mr. Lockwood, it's kind of evolved over exactly what the ask was and what he was looking for, and there was some, I guess, some horse trading between us on how do we manage this event. Ultimately, whatever he requested would be coming to this body, but we decided if he limited it to once per week, and would approve it for a month and see how it goes. So I believe the question's going to be for this body is, do we want to just continue it throughout the summer on this special event? And that would,
Yeah, I think we did have that discussion, back when this came up in terms of the ordinance. The idea was proposed, maybe doing something for a few months and everything. I think though, from a, police department recommendation, I think a month is fine, but I think kicking it back to the commission tonight to look at, modifying that based on our wisdom in the petition or the request of the petitioner is kind of a little bit more our jurisdiction, given it's a new type of permit, new type of, situation, and it was discussed at length last time. So I think that's kind of where we're at today with the 1 month versus what we may approve. So, any other questions for the chief? Unless there's no strong objection, Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, the special event fees. So Arts Beats and Eats is what, 3-4 days, they pay $125?
yes.
And then a one-off event is $125? Good, clay, glass, and metal, 2 days, $125.
Yes.
So really the duration of the event for that fee is entirely discretionary.
To a point, yes. The way we look at them is, this is your special event. The process fee doesn't really cover our costs. I think they cover the city clerk's costs and some processing costs, but each event might require more time than others. So we want to be fair with the people we deal with. So maybe to cut to the chase, I wasn't comfortable authorizing a special event for the entire summer, but I'm very comfortable if this body wants to authorize it for this duration of the summer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Kick that can down the road.
there you go.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Macy, or Commissioner Gibbs.
Mr. Lockwood, you're very brave. We live in Michigan and you don't know what April will bring. Given that this will be outside, but I don't think this is a bad idea. I still have, a special event is, in my mind, the way I define it, is one weekend or one short period of time. So I kind of have a problem wrapping my head around 4 weekends in a row or an entire summer. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think, from what I remember, our last discussion on this, the commission had a little discomfort looking at an ordinance change because, it was a limited area and, it's a challenge to make sure that we don't have, messing with the ordinances where you have to confine them so you don't have proliferation and all these things. And the discussion was, well, we would entertain a permit and look at it for a few months. I think that's what I recall, just to see, because one, we wanted to achieve a few things. One, see, what the impact of food trucks are actually in our, on 4th Street, to see, does it impair business, create any issues? Does it help? Does it grow? Does it attract people? Is it a nuisance? Is it a good thing, a bad thing? And kind of take some of the myths or hypothesis and test them out. I wonder though, I mean, if it's the intent to go for a few months, I mean, we're also asking not just the petitioner to fill out the paperwork and submit it every month, but we're asking the police department to review it every month and do whatever. I mean, we're talking about a food truck, with an operator that's got 4 years and, with no issues. Does it make sense for everyone to try this thing out for a summer? And, if it doesn't work out, then you don't issue any more permits, or if it does work out, we decide what our next move is. Do we look at the ordinance again? Do we look at a licensing agreement? Do we look at having a special permit for food trucks? I think to me, it seems like a waste to make a petitioner come back every month, when it seems very fitting for, I think we all agreed, it seemed like it made sense for that part of town to have some sort of, at least experiment with it, some sort of name state. And I don't think you get an experiment in a month, especially in April. You kind of want to see people get used to it in a month. And the second month, more people come up. And then the third month, you can see, do more people come up, or was it just a fad? I think doing it for a few months makes sense for what we want to learn and inform ourselves on. But, Mr. Douglas.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to, I might even be moving towards making a motion that we approve a permit for 3 months for, or maybe I should do it by weeks. That is in April, May, and June, however many weeks there are, that many events. And that gives us some more warm weather to take a look at it, to see how we feel, and then invite Mr. Lockwood to resubmit for the balance of the season. So I'll make that a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. We have a second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion? Commissioner Dubak.
This is a reasonable approach to this. We discussed, in our previous proposal about, amending ordinances to allow for this. And I think we had some, as you mentioned, some discomfort about locking that in, not knowing really what we're dealing with. So this is I think a nice, toe in the water approach that allows us to give some leverage to a business owner that we know is doing awesome things in our city. And I don't expect this to be a disruption. So we'll go forward with this and see how it goes.
Yeah. Commissioner Macy.
So I'm curious if we can get Mr. Lockwood to say what he thinks about this as a 3-month proposal, and we just kind of threw that out there as an idea. Does that make sense to him, or is there some variation that would make more sense?
Well, we do have a motion on the table, but does anyone object to breaking the rules and hearing from Mr. Lockwood? No, nobody objects. Mr. Lockwood, do you have anything to add?
Thank you for giving me another chance to speak. Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that I don't have any issues with doing a test period here, even if it's for a single month. I don't anticipate there's going to be any problems whatsoever. My proposal to group it into 3 months at a time was to help reduce some of the administrative cost and the cost on me rather than pulling a $125 permit every month. So however you think is best, I'm fine proceeding with that. But my hope was that, once everyone's comfortable with it, that we could do 3 months increments for $125 and administratively have it approved by the police department rather than having to come up here every time and get it reapproved. Does that make sense?
This is on the table.
Well, I think we have to approve special event permits, but anybody?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The way the ordinance is written and the way we've approached this in the past, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but for an event that has been approved before, then the police department will approve the permits administratively. So,
And then we can check in anyways in 3 months, see how you're doing, and if there's any tweaks you want to make and what that means. All right?
Yeah, and I agree with the weather. It all just kind of depends on, obviously, if the weather's not nice, we're not going to have a whole lot of events until it
Unless you're selling hot cocoa, right?
Right.
All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Good luck, Mr. Lockwood.
Appreciate it.
Okay, this brings us to item number 10, the Second Amendment to fiscal year 2018-19 budgets. Ms. Rudd, why
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. I have placed a revised budget amendment document at everyone's chair. You should have received that when you came in today. The only difference between that and the original is in the resolution for the library fund and the state construction fund. Those numbers have been altered. The plus and minuses in the body of the document are no different. Okay, it's just simply the resolution total are different for those two funds. And if you'd like, I could briefly go over the more noteworthy items, if you would like. Okay. For the general fund, there's an increase in expenditures of approximately $59,000 for the general fund's allocation of increased claims costs for our self-insurance fund. Also, what you see there is a $22,000 reduction out of the court expense, but an increase by that same amount to the new indigent defense fund, which we'll see in a moment. The local street fund increased $1,365,000, and that's a transfer out to our capital projects fund, because what we do is we do the older projects out of the capital project fund, and now we're starting to do the newer projects in that exact fund, the local street fund. So these are just some older projects that are wrapping up. So we're going to continue to expend those out of the capital project fund. The public safety fund increased approximately $70,000, and that's their allocation for our increased cost to the self-insurance fund due to higher claims. And then next is the Indigent Defense Fund. This is a new fund. This is the requirements of Public Act 93. And that's an increase for a total fund cost of about $419,000. And all of that, except for the $22,210 that we moved over from the general fund, should be funded by monies from the state. And then you see there the $28,800. That's what we anticipate to receive from the indigent defendants who can pay some portion for their defense. Then the library fund, the noteworthy parts of that, $169,000 approximately we're moving over from the Roots Fund as the library board requested that to be moved to the library fund. And then also an increase in capital costs of $95,000 as their estimates are coming in higher than anticipated for the entrance and the roof panels. The state construction code fund requesting an increase in revenues of $1,230,000 because the fund, the permits are coming in much higher than budgeted. And then on the expenditure side, an increase to transfer out $863,000, and that is the building department's portion of the new city hall. As we talked about before, part of the, we did not bond for their piece of the new city hall because their fund had sufficient cash, so that wasn't necessary. So that's moving it over to the capital improvement fund for the ROK project. And then, I'll skip over Roots, we talked about that. Police grants, the significant item there, $98,000 approximately increase for police road barricade, and that's just a federal pass-through. And then, the other funds that we don't have resolutions for, we do not have resolutions for anything above the 200 funds, is $8 million for the ROK project. That is not in the original budget. So we're having costs there. So that's the best guess, highest amount that we could pay through June 30th from Plant Marin Cressa. And then the final thing is a Parks Improvement Fund, $2.2 million for the Normandy Oaks Park Development. That is the highest, the DPS director has said that they think they could spend this year. It might be a little high, but best case scenario for the progress that he thinks they might have. And then $250,000 for the Royal Oak course pathway. And then this last thing, I want to make sure I point out the Royal Oak Golf Course netting for $20,000. The commission talked about this many, many months ago. However, it wasn't definite whether they were going to do the netting project, and then also what the funding source is. So I just want to, we're putting it there so at least there's a budget. It still has not gone out to bid. They are in the process of that, but that bid will come before the commission. Yeah. And it's, yeah, that's all I have.
Questions for Ms. Rudd? Any questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Rudd. So we have a proposed resolution in the budget document. Commissioner Macy?
I'll move approval of the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Paruch. Discussion. Okay, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, this brings us to item number 11, award of traffic signal trade contract work.
Mr. Mayor, City Commission. We have a few agenda items that are coming up for most of the remainder of tonight pertaining to the Civic Center project. This first one is a recommendation to award a contract to Motor City Electric for the traffic light that is necessary for the 11-mile parking deck. There were 4 firms invited to bid. We received and evaluated 2 proposals, and we're recommending Motor City Electric as the lowest qualified bid for that scope of work. The bid is approximately $50,000 over budget. We'll be funding that overage through the owner's contingency that is already built into our budget. So I do have our owner's rep, Chris Becker, here to answer any additional questions, of course, myself as well.
Any questions for Mr. Fenton or Mr. Becker? Commissioner Dubak.
Just curious if we have any insight as to why these all came in higher than anticipated?
Do you have any insight on that? I'm sorry. On why the bids came in higher than anticipated from the budget?
Are there market factors, or is it just demand, or?
We really set a budget too low. Honest truth is, we set a budget too low. When the numbers are that competitive, we were looking at something early on the job, so we had a low budget.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions? Okay, no questions. We can entertain a motion on this one. Motion by Commissioner Paruch.
I'll move approval of this.
We have a second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion? None, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that brings us to item number 12, award of traffic control equipment.
So the recommendation for this award is to go with Traffic and Safety Control Systems. They are the sole dealer and distributor of the equipment that is already in the rest of the Royal Oak parking decks. They had received that award in 2016 after an RFP the city issued in 2015. Rather than RFP this and be faced with a circumstance where we may need to replace all of the equipment, as I had said, equipment which was 2 years old, in all of the decks. We're recommending sole sourcing this with, again, Traffic and Safety Control Systems, who is the sole dealer and distributor. Unlike the last item, this one came in $95,000 under budget. It's actually the same equipment rate that they had originally provided for the city in 2016. So for those factors, we recommend, again, Traffic and Safety Control Systems for this item.
Any questions for Mr. Fenton or Mr. Becker? Commissioner Lavasser.
Could you elaborate a little bit on the reason why it's important to have the same equipment in this structure as well as the other structures? And also elaborate on the potential savings, maintenance savings there would be by using the same equipment.
Actually, your second part of the question is one of the really big answers for us is you have a savings on the maintenance of equipment by using the same equipment in every one of your parking decks. You don't have to buy as much attic stock material. You've got the same contractor coming out, so you save a great deal of money in utilizing the same equipment in every garage. That's one of the really big factors.
I guess, and what the memo was lacking was something that quantified it. I mean, are we saving $500? Are we saving $50,000? That's what wasn't stated, so I have a sense of the scope of the savings.
Yeah, the scope of the savings is actually very large because of the number of decks that you're utilizing this equipment on. To say how much you're really gonna save it's over a period of years, and you'll probably save in the 25 to 50,000 range. They have the type of systems that are used in most of the parking garages in the area, as I've built a couple other ones like Greektown Casino's parking deck. I worked on the arena, and all of this equipment is used in those different decks. So it's a very popular, very good equipment. These guys are the sole dealer in the state of Michigan for this equipment. But your real savings on it is, number one, they didn't increase their prices on any of the equipment used from when they first priced out the parking deck work in Royal Oak. So not just the previous one that we had bid out, but also the parking deck before that. So overall, it's a bigger savings, but it's ease in maintenance, and your contract stays with the one contractor.
Any other questions? Mr. Johnson?
I would just add one more point. It's also very significant for our staff in terms of that they're dealing with one type of equipment that operates one way and they know how it works. And in terms of parts that we might keep on hand ourselves, which in some cases we do. But a lot of times we get in calls about questions about the equipment that one person's going to know exactly what they're using because they don't have to deal with that it's a different brand, a different method at one structure versus another. I think it also helps the public too that's used to dealing with our parking decks that each one of them operates the same.
That's a good point. It's also kind of like the Southwest model, right? Have all the same airplane. Keep maintenance costs low and keep planes in the air. Commissioner Douglas?
Move approval of the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Paruch. Further discussion? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Award of elevator trade contract work.
This relates to the new City Hall, which is currently under construction. We received 3 bid proposals for trade work related to the elevator. We're recommending the lowest qualified bid, which was submitted by Kone Elevator. It is approximately $17,000 over budget. This overage will be funded from the owner's contingency on the project, and we're anticipating that the new City Hall will come in within 2% of the overall project budget.
Questions for Mr. Fenton? Commissioner Dubak.
What was the overall contingency percentage that we tacked onto the project?
The overall contingency, I actually have it over here, is an actual dollar value. I think I'll be addressing it in one of the next items. For City Hall, that is $432,000.
Any other questions? Motions? Commissioner Paruch?
I'll move approval of this resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Paruch, second by Commissioner Dubak. Discussion? With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. This brings us to item number 14, guaranteed maximum price amendment to City Hall construction management contract.
This is really a housekeeping issue. It's an amendment to the original contract we awarded to Colasani Construction, O'Brien Construction, the joint venture that is functioning as our construction manager for the City Hall, Police Station, Downtown Park, and connectivity. This is essentially memorializing all the trade contracts that had been awarded for the construction portion of this work. The construction budget we had set with Plant Moran Cressa was $8.939 million. The GMP amendment, which again is totaling up all of the trade contracts of work, is $9,008,840, which is about $69,841. Actually, not which, it's exactly that, over budget, which is less than 1% of the total construction budget. We'll be funding that out of the contingency amount on this project. Again, this is awarding the GMP so that while our purchase order with Colasani will remain a little bit higher, it'll be actually contemplating the contingency amount in City Hall in case winter conditions or any other site issues should arise while we move forward on construction.
Once again, questions for Mr. Fentner, Mr. Becker? Commissioner Lavasser?
I just want to make sure I fully understand. Has everything been bid out, or is there still some more items that need to be bid out here?
For construction, I believe we're 100%.
No, actually, there is a couple of items that when we bid out, we got no bidders on. So there is a couple of scopes of work that we'll bid out yet in the work. And let's see if I can pick them out quickly. It's like toilet partitions, flag poles, signage. Those are the items that we're gonna have to bid out yet. So we will go out with another package. They've got a specific allowance or budget that we have for the work, and then we'll apply that to those items when we get those things bid out and awarded.
Okay, my understanding is this was part of the original contract. It was one of the things that was promised to us at that time, that at some point there would be this guarantee. I'm just trying to get a sense of how the city is benefiting from this guarantee, whether the costs are already pretty much locked in, or if there's still some gray area that we might be concerned on. What if we come in under budget on a few other items? Who gets the benefit of that scenario?
And that's a very good question, and the under-budget items come back to the city. That's part of the GMP. What we come under budget, all of it comes back to the city. There's not even a shared savings in the GMP. But it's to lock in a price so we know exactly where we're gonna be at. We're bidding out the police station right now. Once we get those bids in, we award that work, then we're gonna go for a final GMP over all three projects. So that is something we'll bring before you probably in the next month. Once we get all those, get through the bids, review them, and then we can come back with another award recommendation for the contractors, and then another final GMP between the City Hall, connectivity, and police station in one contract.
Okay, what is the primary benefit for the city in adopting this? And what, if any, deadline do we have to accept this?
Guarantees the cost of the work per the documents that we've put out. And the cost wouldn't go higher based on that scope of work. And the other side, as we just discussed, any savings we realize come back to the city. It's really a twofold situation. You got a guaranteed price for the cost of the work.
And the second part, is there a deadline for us to say yes?
A deadline, I'm sorry.
A deadline for us to say yes to this?
It really needs to happen now. While we've got trade contractor work, it doesn't allow the flexibility of Colasani to move forward with everything. So if I say a deadline, if not this meeting, it'd be nice to have it by the next.
Okay, and the ramifications, if we were to say no, what would be the ramifications?
Colasani could only go forward with a certain amount of the work. Like right now with the toilet partitions, we'd have to get all that other work bid out really quickly, whereas they have time to do that over the next couple of months where the schedule wouldn't be affected. It's a schedule effect item by not moving forward.
Commissioner Douglas?
I was going to make a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Paruch. Discussion. Commissioner Dubak.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to clarify. So, I mean, the value of the GMP is that delays or mistakes or things that need to be corrected, our cost is locked in. Is that accurate? This is what we're going to pay?
Our
regardless of
cost
whether-
is locked in for this job and then on the connectivity job, which is next also.
So that, to Commissioner Lavasser's question, that therein lies the value for the city, is we know exactly what our level is regardless of what happens with the project. Other circumstances might drive up costs, but this is what we're going to pay. Is that accurate?
That's
Or
right.
less.
Thank you.
Right, because we don't have all the bids in, and Colasanti and O'Brien are providing estimates of where they think, this will be, so it doesn't put back scheduling. And then in the event, if we don't do this, then if all the bids come back higher, we could potentially pay more. But at least we know right now we have the guarantee that this is the maximum price, and if contracts come in, when we do the final bidding on the last few items, it could come in less, and, we're in better shape. We capture 100% of those savings.
Very much so.
Protected on the upside and get 100% advantage on the downside.
And we're moving forward with all these projects right now. This just gets into the guarantee that we can complete these things as scheduled.
Makes sense to me. Okay, any other discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, connectivity. Again, this is amendment to the original contract, specifically over the connectivity portion of the project. The connectivity budget was $5,137,141. The value of this GMP amendment, based upon the trade contracts that were awarded earlier, is $4,598,013, which results in a under budget amount of $539,128. That's not to say that this is money going back into the project right now. We anticipate that these funds will be used to fund the landscape architect. There still may be some site conditions that come up now that we're full into the winter season. But right now in this part of the project, it looks really, really positive. Again, Chris, can you back me up with any other questions you may have? Questions for Mr. Fentner, Mr. Becker? Commissioner Macy?
Landscape architect for just the general area or for the park itself?
For the downtown park.
So is there a reason we can't use the 5 million from the DDA for the landscape architect?
It's a project budget, so there's $5 million that's budgeted for the downtown park. The DDA isn't giving us $5 million, they're giving us $737,000 over a term of years. How we allocate into what bucket, we haven't determined yet. We're looking at this as an overall project budget, so the connectivity park portion are actually one and the same. It's 10.9 all totaled, so it's really a Peter Paul issue here. It's going to go to the same place. The connectivity portion, the 539, as I said, that the owner's contingency that's left over will probably end up being put back into the project somewhere else at some point.
Okay.
Commissioner Dubak.
Just following up on that, so I'm understanding right, the project budget overall, it's considering all revenue sources and allocating what we're going to pay.
Yeah, at this point, we're looking at any savings that we're getting. And again, a lot of these budgets were set 2 years ago, and that we're within 0.5%, 1% coming in under, I think is really a testament to the really good planning we did on the project. We're awaiting the police department bids that are coming in tomorrow, and should there be any overages anticipated, that's where we'll start moving these. As Chris had said, when we're doing an overall GMP for the project, you're going to see where some of the money shifted from one bucket to another.
Gotcha, thanks. I'll move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Dubak, is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion. With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Gentlemen, Mr. Becker, thank you. Mr. Fenton, thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, this brings us to the last item on our agenda, the fireworks ordinance amendment, first reading. Mr. Gillen.
Mayor Fournier and City Commissioners, one of the good things that came out of lame duck the end of last year in Lansing was an increase in the authority that a municipality has to regulate the use of consumer fireworks within the community. This amendment to state law allows us to increase the number of days that we can prohibit the use of consumer fireworks. It allows us to decrease the hours during which consumer fireworks can be used. It also increases the penalties for the use of fireworks in violation of those restrictions. A lot of the other restrictions that are contained in the ordinance are already contained within the existing fireworks ordinance, but we tweaked those to conform fully with the rest of the changes that were contained in the state law. So we would recommend approval of the proposed ordinance amendment on first reading. I believe the police department also supports these changes as well.
How fast can we do?
Questions for Mr. Gillum? Oh, we had Commissioner Gibbs.
How does this line up with surrounding communities? And the reason I ask is because I live by Southfield, Beverly Hills, and I hear fireworks going off all the time. And if I were to call the police, or I have in the past, I have no idea where they're coming from. The non-emergency line, obviously, but how does this, do you have an idea?
I would expect, and I don't know, I mean, I think we're on the front end of the curve. I think we're getting out ahead on this issue more quickly than a lot of other communities are going to. At least I haven't heard anybody else adopting the kind of type of changes that we're talking about tonight. But I fully expect that just about every other community in the area will be adopting the same kind of restrictions that we are. I think the opposition and the complaints about the way that the current law reads, I think those have been across the board. So I expect everybody else will be following what we're doing here.
Mr. Johnson, you have something to add?
Yes, I had a call late this afternoon with Bill Leitner, a reporter for the Free Press, who was calling about this subject, and his comment was that Royal Oak seems to be the first community to be moving to take advantage of the changes in state law, so he wanted some comments about why.
Okay.
Commissioner Dubak.
I would say it's good that the state has, at least in this one circumstance, recognized the value of a little bit more local control. Others still demanding that we allow folks in dense urban areas to be firing rockets at each other on certain days, because apparently it's more safe on certain days than others. So this is one of the things I've had to explain in my ears at the table hundreds of times over when those complaints come in, like, why are we allowing this as a community? Had to explain to people multiple times. This is one of the many things the state's taken away from us and our ability to regulate. So I think residents are going to be appreciative that we're doing what we can to rein this in. I think this makes sense to me. It's a reasonable course of action. I'll move for approval.
Motion by Commissioner Dubak. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Commissioner Paruch.
I just want to make sure, and Judy Davids is here, that we fold this into the public information that gets out there so that people understand that this is the new rule that's going to be in place as soon as the ordinance is effective. And I know that she has an effective way of doing that through Insight and all other, the city website and so on. So I guess I would encourage her to put it in as many city publication notifications, whatever, as possible, so that people are aware of this, so that when we come up upon Memorial Day or any other day that's a holiday that's allowed, people understand that the rules in fact have changed, so that we can actually physically decrease the number of incidents that we have. So I know she's going to do that, but that's something we have to make sure everybody understands, is that the rules really did drastically change.
Good point, Commissioner Paruch. Commissioner Macy.
Yeah, I was going to say something along the same lines. So I guess maybe I'm alone at this table. I like firecrackers, but I do know that it can be an issue, especially for military veterans and for dogs. Actually, a lot of dogs have issues with it. And I think limiting the days makes a lot of sense. Within here, we've also now raised the possible fines up to $1,000. And I just want to make clear with Mr. Gillum that that's the maximum fine, right? And it can be adjusted by the judge as needed.
Actually, the way the state law is written and the way that we've drafted the ordinance, the fine for a violation would be $1,000.
It says here, oh, it does say by a fine of, oh.
Yeah, so.
All right, well
no,
then, now that I have a question about that. Because I read it as up to a fine of $1,000. $1,000 is a pretty stiff penalty for a brand-new ordinance that definitely, as Commissioner Gibbs has pointed out, is violated quite a bit in the city of Royal Oak right now. I wonder if there's a reason we're not giving any discretion to the judge.
Again, we're tracking what the state law says. The state law says the penalty of the, see if I can find the language in the act.
Well, he's looking for the language. I can give you my perspective when we tackled this a while ago. If you're lighting rockets in the middle of a densely populated city with lots of trees and other, whether it's the law or not, I think you know, $1,000 fine is, creates a prohibitive nature, but for those who don't know, I kind of feel like if you're endangering your fellow neighbors, $1,000 fine doesn't seem to be unreasonable. My opinion.
Yeah, Commissioner Macy, the language from the State Act, an ordinance under subsection 2, which is where they provide the limits on the days and hours and things like that, shall impose a civil fine of $1,000 for each violation of the ordinance and no other fine or sanction. And the ordinance must provide for the remittance of $500 of the fine collected under the ordinance to the local law enforcement agency responsible for enforcing the ordinance. So I think we have to have a civil fine of $1,000, the way the state law is written.
Okay, it seems strange to me that it's a discretionary ordinance and yet a mandatory civil fine that's within the ordinance. And I will say to the mayor that you make it sound like these are some renegade people trying to set the forest on fire, but if people set firecrackers off in their driveway, which guilty every year on 4th of July, a $1,000 fine is quite a bit, and I understand it wouldn't be levied on the 4th of July. I just think this is gonna be quite a shock to some people who have.
I don't think it applies to lighting sparklers and things like that. I think shooting bottle rockets in the air and using the airborne munitions is really the heart of it. Commissioner Lavasser.
Mr. Gillum, would the legal staff have discretion to amend the complaint, to amend it to some other complaint other than a violation of this ordinance that may be a lower fine?
Well, let me, I guess, start at the beginning. First of all, police officers who are responding would have the discretion as to whether or not to issue a violation. But if a violation was issued, yeah, you're correct that my staff would have the authority to reduce the violation to something that carried a lower fine. Off the top of my head, I would find it hard to believe that there would be a legitimate basis, but I'm sure we could come up with some reason that maybe there would be in extreme cases. But I certainly don't think that would be our normal practice.
So,
I mean, I guess just a follow-up comment on that. I think the state has recognized that these are our neighbors and that we're talking about here. Used to be that a violation of fireworks ordinance was a misdemeanor, and you could actually be arrested for it. And if you pled guilty or you were found guilty, you'd be generating a criminal record for yourself. And one thing the prior state act did was change it to a civil infraction, but it capped the maximum penalties at $500. And now this change in the state law still keeps the violation as a civil infraction, but it's doubled the penalty and then has made the penalty mandatory. So.
Commissioner Paruch.
I'll move approval of this ordinance on first reading.
The motion by Commissioner.
We already have a motion.
We have a motion.
Oh, we already have a motion. Never mind.
That's right, Commissioner Dubak. All right, well, we're out of sorts tonight, aren't we? We got a motion on the table. Is there further discussion? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, on to our grand finale. Motion to adjourn. Go out with a bang. Commissioner Douglas.
People's business being concluded for the month of January, I move we adjourn.
We have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. We have a second by Commissioner Macy. Is there any discussion, big or small, on this motion that's on the table? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We're adjourned.